Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome if you're new. Thank you for taking time out of your day to check the video out. We have more PlayStation news, rumors, and leaks to go over and cover today. And we're starting here with, I would say, relatively good news for a PlayStation studio that unfortunately we're probably not going to be hearing from for quite some time, but still a studio that I think a lot of people want to see not only succeed, but, put out something we're excited to play, that being Bluepoint Games. So the most recent news about Bluepoint Games came about 4 months ago, where we heard that apparently they were, for some reason, working on a live service God of War title that ultimately ended up getting canceled. Well, over on Twitter, we have Zubitech saying here, Bluepoint Games' new AAA project, Principal Graphics Engineer. The Principal Graphics Engineer position is responsible for building out exciting rendering systems and features in the Bluepoint engine to bring our team's vision to life. Now, this is obviously a job posting that he discovered, and I thought it was worth covering because it seems to indicate that Bluepoint has already pitched Sony their next game, which hopefully will be a single-player game, maybe another remake, potentially a remaster of some kind, or it could be something original. But either way, this is good news. There were people that were a little bit worried that, maybe Bluepoint would end up suffering layoffs or, possibly even a studio closure or something like that, because it's been years since they released another title and their most recent project was canceled. But the good news here is that they seemingly already had something else that they wanted to pitch to Sony. They did it successfully, and now they're working on it. We're going to move to the next topic, which is an update for Days Gone Remastered being reported by PlayStation Lifestyle. A new update for Days Gone Remastered was released recently, adding several new features and fixes to the recent release. This includes a welcome addition for adopters of the PS5 Pro. The most noteworthy addition to Days Gone Remastered's update is of the new graphics option. Available on both PS5 and PS5 Pro, there is now a balanced render mode, which attempts to balance frame rate and resolution. For PS5, it targets 40 frames per second and renders at 1800p resolution. On PS5 Pro, it also targets 40 FPS, but renders at 2160p thanks to PSSR. Now, obviously, they did a few more things there where they're, taking care of any bugs or anything that may have needed to be ironed out. But it is worth noting here that they say, dev note, this will only show if you have a TV or display supporting 120 Hz, and VRR is now enabled. So there is no in-game selection for VRR. You must have a supported TV or display for it to be enabled in the PS5 system settings. But yeah, more good news, I would say, for Days Gone Remastered. I'm still playing it, thoroughly enjoying it, and I'm definitely going to try out this balanced mode. Moving on to the next topic, we have some news regarding Red Dead Redemption 2 possibly making its way to PS5, being reported by WCCF Tech. A Nintendo Switch 2 port of Red Dead Redemption 2 is in the works alongside PS5 and Xbox Series versions of the game, according to rumors circulating online. As reported by Game Reactor, sources close to Rockstar Games revealed that the studio is working on a port of the excellent open-world game originally released in 2018 on PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, and it could be released as early as this year. Besides working on this port, Rockstar Games is reportedly working on a Red Dead Redemption 2 update for PS5 and Xbox Series that improves graphics and performance. So obviously the big thing here is 60 FPS. Red Dead Redemption 2 is already a very, very good looking game, but unfortunately it never did get that proper 60 FPS update for the current gen consoles. And it's also worth noting that the game, I believe, runs at 1440p on the PS4 Pro. So maybe when it comes to the PS5 update, if this rumor is true, we'll see it hit native 4K at 60 FPS. And man, that would be amazing, because it feels like this already should have happened. But, hopefully this is true, and better late than never. Let me know if you would go back and play Red Dead Redemption 2 if Rockstar ends up doing this. And the last thing I'll mention before moving on is they don't make it clear whether or not this would just be like a patch to people who already own the game, or if they're actually going to resell the game, like a proper PS5 version, maybe even a physical version. We'll have to see what they end up doing there. Moving on to the next topic, we have a new report regarding Resident Evil 9, a game a lot of people are very much anticipating, I would say. So being reported by WCCF Tech, according to insider Dusk Golem, who is often well informed about Capcom's roadmap, RE9 should be planned for a 2025 reveal and subsequent 2026 launch. Here's what the leaker had to say on X. It's almost 100% for sure being revealed this year and releasing next year. Doubt they'll delay more. The question comes if it's being revealed this summer or at the Game Awards, for example, this year, and if it's releasing this fiscal year, which ends March 31st, 2026, or next fiscal year, meaning late 2026. Dusk Golem previously said that RE9 would be set in a Singapore-inspired island, more specifically in a rural town. This town setting was already explored in RE4 and Resident Evil Village, although, of course, this took place in Spain and Romania, respectively. The Southeast Asian setting alone would provide a fresh take. So, yeah, this is going to be really interesting to see if it turns out to be true. I actually do expect it to be true because I would have thought that RE9 was going to be announced by now, and of course we're all waiting to find out if Sony's going to be doing a state of play or showcase this summer. And if you look at the trajectory of previous announcements regarding Resident Evil games, they've always shown up at PlayStation events, whether they were state of plays or PlayStation showcases. This is where you would see a new RE title announced, so hopefully there is a PlayStation show coming, and hopefully RE9 will be one of the bigger games revealed. Moving on from that, we have another update regarding GTA 6 coming from WCCF Tech once again. After so many reassurances that GTA 6 would be arriving in 2025, many players were disappointed to learn that it had been pushed back to May 26th of next year. But Take-Two CEO Strauss Zelnick feels confident that the delay was absolutely the right choice and that Rockstar needed the extra time as they continued seeking perfection with GTA 6. Speaking to IGN about the delay, Zelnick admitted that delays caused him pain but was resolute that it was the right choice and that the most important thing to do is to support your teams in their search for perfection. Breaking down what led to the decision, Zelnick said, as we got closer to completion of a title that's seeking perfection, the needs or lack thereof for continued polish become clear. In this case, there was an opportunity with a small amount of incremental time, we thought, to make sure Rockstar Games achieves its creative vision with no limitations, and I supported, of course, that approach. I feel really good about how fiscal 26 looks sitting here today, he continued, and while of course delays pain me, how could they not? The most important thing to do is to support your teams in their search for perfection. In Zelnick's opening statement for Take-Two's latest earnings report for the fourth quarter of the 2025 fiscal year, Zelnick says the choice to give Rockstar more time with GTA 6 is a worthy investment. Rockstar will clearly get all the time it needs, but now that a date has been put out, Zelnick is sounding as confident as he can without having to directly say that GTA 6 will not be delayed again. I think historically, when we set a specific date, generally speaking, we've been very good about reaching it. This is what he told IGN. When asked by the games business about announcing the date a year in advance, he responded by saying generally, when we set a specific date, that ends up being the date. We thought it was important to reassure people that it is coming, and picking a specific date emphasizes that point. So yeah, I thought this was worth covering just momentarily here because, as I suspected, the delay was for polish, right? He's confirming that, but he is emphasizing the fact that they're giving a specific date, that being May 26th of next year, that should give some people some reassurance that they're not planning on delaying it again. But, you know, we do need to keep in mind that this is a massive game, and what I would tell people is do not be shocked, maybe be a little surprised, maybe even a little bit disappointed, but do not be shocked if we find out this game is actually not coming out till like September of 2026. We're going to move on and talk about some really bad news for Bungie, once again coming from WCCF Tech. Now, there's an update to this story, but we'll start with the original. They say, once again, Bungie has been caught taking art from an artist without that artist's permission and putting it in their games, this time with Marathon. Artist Anti-Real posted on X that the Marathon Alpha is covered with assets lifted from poster designs I made in 2017, with design comparisons showing the assets were essentially copied one for one. Bungie is of course not obligated to hire me when making a game that draws overwhelmingly from the same design language I have refined for the last decade, but clearly my work was good enough to pillage for ideas and plaster all over their game without pay or attribution. I don't have the resources nor the energy to spare to pursue this legally, but I have lost count of the number of times a major company has deemed it easier to pay a designer or imitate or steal my work than to write me an email. In 10 years, I have never made a consistent income from this work, and I'm tired of designers from huge companies mood boarding and parasitizing my designs while I struggle to make a living. So there is an update to this where it says Marathon game director Joe Zegler and franchise art director Joseph Cross appeared on a Twitch live stream that was previously meant to be Bungie discussing feedback from the game's alpha, which it did, but it began with Cross and Zegler discussing the art assets that were taken from Anti-Real's art. In a prepared statement that wasn't all too different from the one Bungie already gave through its Marathon Dev Team X account, Cross confirmed that the lifted assets would be removed from the game and that a thorough scrubbing of the rest of Marathon's art assets would be done to ensure that there's nothing else they've missed like this. Cross also added that Bungie is working to make this right with Anti-Real and that they've reached out to her to try to do just that. Now, for those wondering, the statement that they put out there on their X account basically said that this was, they were trying to scapegoat. They said it was one artist that is no longer with them, but what people discovered is that the seemingly almost the entire art team at Bungie is following this specific artist on X and through different accounts, that being Anti-Real. And so what this is basically turning into is essentially the entire look and aesthetic of Marathon, the way people view it, and it makes complete sense because it is starting to look this way, was lifted from this one artist. And this artist was not notified, they were not asked, they were just left in the dark. And not only that, the worst part here is that this has already happened multiple times for Bungie. So, it's pathetic in my opinion to see Bungie just kind of try to, downplay this and, scapegoat by blaming it on one developer, when in reality it's like, no, this is a very serious problem that you've ran into multiple times. There's something clearly very, very wrong and broken with their system here when it comes to art and artists. So I have a feeling this is going to turn into a much bigger situation as time goes on. A lot of people are actually now making it clear that they want this game to fail. So it seems like Sony and Bungie have yet another situation on their hands here. I don't know how they're going to handle it, but yeah, I will continue to keep you guys updated. We're going to move on to the next topic here, which is some more bad news regarding Sony Live Service being reported by Push Square. They say Jade Raymond, the founder of Fairgames developer Haven Studio, has left the company, Sony has announced via a new Bloomberg report. The reason for her departure wasn't shared with the outlet, but it's said to have come a few weeks after the studio hosted an external test of its PS5 live service game, which reportedly raised concerns for some developers. According to the report, there are worries surrounding how the title was received during the test and how far along the project actually is. Officially, Sony said the following to Bloomberg: Jade Raymond has been an incredible partner and visionary force in founding Haven Studios. We are deeply grateful for her leadership and contributions, and we wish her all the best in her next chapter. PlayStation added that it's committed to supporting Haven Studio and excited to continue the journey it's on with the title. So, yeah, this is not a good sign for Fairgames. Jade Raymond, unfortunately, almost every project she's been on in recent memory, she's ended up walking away from and leaving the studio or the publisher or wherever she was. And it's no different here with PlayStation. To me, the most concerning part here is the fact that this comes not too long after they did some playtesting where the feedback, frankly, must not have been very good. It's good that Sony's doing playtesting. They're going to need to do this if they have any shot of trying to save Fairgames, but I don't think anybody really has genuine confidence in this title. And so I will continue to keep you guys updated, and we will see what happens there. But the final topic we're covering has to do with Death Stranding 2 being reported again by Push Square. They say Death Stranding 2 on the Beach review codes aren't available for press outlets like ourselves yet, but Sony and Kojima Productions will have been conducting internal reviews for months now. These are more designed to offer the studio feedback on what areas they could improve and give a rough estimate of where the PS5 game might land review score-wise when we do gain access. There's no way to know what the internal reviews estimated Death Stranding would receive when it came out on PS4 in 2019, but the original version scored an 82. The PS5's director cut improved on that slightly with an 85. Now, according to a new interview with Hideo Kojima in the latest Edge magazine via VGC, the full PS5 follow-up is scoring significantly higher with its test reviews. Sony's apparently pleased about this, but Kojima himself wishes the release would prove to be a bit more controversial. Kojima explains that he does listen to feedback and criticism regarding elements such as controls and the camera, but the story and themes remain untouched regardless of what test reviewers say. Of course, I want people to play my game, so I must listen to them to a certain extent, but also I'm not interested in making something that appeals to everyone. He goes on to state that he sat in on a lot of monitoring tests for the original game. I'd find that 4 out of 10 people would love the game, but 6 would say it was a terrible game. For me, I think that's a good balance. But with the playtest for Death Stranding 2 on the beach, everyone seems to be positive. Kojima then says he's not interested in appealing to the mass market or selling millions of copies. He wishes to create games that prove controversial. Of course, I can't afford to make a failure either. I must take care of my studio, my staff, and our production budget. But in essence, I don't want to simply recreate something that's already in the world. I want to make something new. So I thought this was definitely worth going over because it's very interesting that he says like 6 out of 10 people who play tested or mock reviewed Death Stranding said this is a terrible game. Now he's saying pretty much everybody's saying Death Stranding 2 is a great game. Gives me, not hope, but just a lot of excitement, I would say, in that this game is going to be significantly better than the first game. But I do understand where Kojima's coming from. He doesn't want to make something that's just, relatively cookie cutter and just checks off all the boxes. But at the same time, he understands he has a responsibility to his studio and his staff, which is good, right? So there you go. Apparently, internally, the mock reviews, it's reviewing much higher than the first game. Going to be really interesting to see where it lands. Guys, that's going to do it for the video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found it informative. If you did, be sure to leave it a like. Subscribe if you're new. Hit the bell notification icon, and feel free to share this video out on top of all that. But until next time, guys, take care.